you see me?
Yeah, Ritik. Great. Ritik, would you please give me a little bit brief about current role and responsibilities?
So right now I am working with KMG IT Services, Gurgaon, Udyog, Bihar. So right now I am working with hybrid environment in which 50% of that is on-premise and 50% of that includes cloud. So if I talk about IT internal operations or on-premise, so we have dedicated servers, firewalls, and all that stuff. So as an infrastructure guy, my task is to work daily upon them, and whatever the issues are, resolve them, and also the end user issues. And 50% of that includes cloud. So and apart from that, there is 20 to 30% is DevOps part, since it's a software development company. So if I talk about cloud, so whatever the production environment resources which are to be created for the production environment, my task is to create those resources and hand over them to the clients. So this is the overall.
Okay. So, in the current organization, you are working on the AWS cloud.
Yes.
Okay. So, actually, what is the exactly cloud is?
Cloud is basically a pay-as-you-go model infrastructure in which the hardware part is missing, and we are migrating our on-premise resources to the cloud. So because we want to reduce the hardware overhead, because that most of the time that is underutilized or overutilized. So cloud provides us the flexibility to basically up and down the infrastructure as per our requirement, and flexibility in terms of cost, and also the creation of servers and destruction of that infrastructure according to our requirement is very flexible.
Okay. Rustic, which kind of application you deployed on the cloud server? Which kind of applications, which technologies and which kind of application is there?
So my task is to create the resources for the production environment, like website hosting and creation of EC2 instances and all those kind of stuff. And basically there was a Java project, so I had migrated that project to cloud using Elastic Beanstalk. So these kind of work I am doing.
Have you deployed on PHP MySQL project as well?
In once I had deployed a LAMP application. So basically what do is create EC2 instance according to our requirement, and install the proper Linux, Apache, and PHP and MySQL based on our requirement, and after that we go ahead and deploy that application.
So, do you use the RDS or which kind of RDS you use for the MySQL deploy for DB?
What DB? MySQL DB in RDS. So RDS is the dedicated service provided by the AWS, and we often use MySQL and MS SQL. So basically there were some server crashes in our on-premise infrastructure. So the databases which are very critical, so I create those databases using RDS and give that access to the developers. Apart from that, there are various ways to migrate to those RDS to the cloud using database management service or those kind of things. And apart from that, we have .NET projects, so we directly move or push those projects to Azure.
Okay. So, what is the difference between Provision RDS and Aurora?
Provisioned RDS service is basically the resources and all those the prerequisites are already offered by the AWS. So that is known as the managed RDS service, and Aurora is a type of database, one of the type of the database.
So yeah, but what is the difference between these? So who is a better option to choose?
Which one, Aurora and
Aurora and provisional IDS.
so both might have their own pros and cons. I have not used Aurora DB. So
So okay. What is the net gateway? NAT.
a NAT gateway is basically used to move traffic to and fro from private subnet to public subnet and public subnet to private subnet, because private subnet is not supposed to go to the internet directly for security purposes.
Okay, so what is the difference between the net gateway and net instance?
NAT instance is created by the users and NAT gateway is provided by the AWS. So, and if I talk about instance, so the user has control over it to the NAT instance incurs a lot of cost. So, if we want to minimize our cost, so we can use NAT instance also.
Okay. Can we use the S3 as a primary value?
Primary value?
Can we use the S3 as a primary value for instance, creating the instance?
No, we can move data from S3 to that EBS. But
no, my question is that can we, whenever you create the instance, can we use the S3 as a primary value?
I have not come across such kind of scenario. Primary value means we want to attach that S3 instead of EBS.
Yeah, what is the difference between EBS and S3?
So
what are the kind of storage?
S3 is the object kind of storage and EBS is the block kind of storage. So EBS is meant for to be attached to the instances, and S3 stores basically it is independent from EC2 instance and it is an object kind of storage. So it has its own features like life cycle, versioning, etc.
Okay, so can we use the S3 in place of EBS for the creating the instance?
I don't think so. I have not done this kind of thing. I always attach EBS. But yeah, sometimes we need to move S3 data to EBS. That is possible.
Okay. What is the concept of role in AI?
Roles are basically to grant temporary access to any user or any resource for the particular time and take those permissions and authorities back when the task is completed. So basically in IAM, go to roles, select your resources, and underneath provide all the access, like if I want to give a role to any particular user, and apart from that give only the read access to any particular EC2 instance or S3, so that is known as a role. And also it is used to give access to cross account permissions.
And what is the concept of group?
Group is to we have different teams in our company. So say suppose one is HR team, one is IT team, one is accounts team. So to group the similar kind of people, we use groups. So the collection of users is known as groups.
Can you categorize the different types of instances?
On the basis of?
Hello?
Yes. On one are the type of instances based upon the cost, and one are based upon the usage.
Okay, and
So if I talk about based upon the usage, so one is storage optimized, memory optimized, compute optimized, high availability, high memory, and general purpose. And if I talk about the cost, we have spot instances, reserved instances, schedule instances, dedicated host, and general purpose.
what is the port number of HTTPS?
443.
And what is the concept of port number 80?
HTTP without secure. That is not end-to-end encrypted.
Okay.
HTTP is 80 and HTTPS is 443. So HTTP connection is end-to-end encrypted. So so that should be used in the websites or any transaction which includes transaction, like we have IRCTC website. So that should be compulsorily encrypted. And if we have a static website which is not interacting and only showing the data, so we can only go through the provision HTTP.
Okay. And how many types of load balancing is available in AWS?
So there are in total 3, and based upon the usage as of now in 2021 are 2. Classic load balancer is no longer used. We can use it, but that is no longer used. So one is network load balancer and one is application load balancer. HTTP and HTTPS protocols are supported by applications load balancer, and the layer 4 TCP and UDP and TLS kind of protocols are supported by network load balancer. Rest of the data is moved without load balance.
Okay. And what is the concept of VPC?
The virtual network inside the cloud, AWS cloud is known as a virtual private cloud. So one is by default, one is already created, and if we want to create our own VPC, so we can create VPC using creating internet gateway, subnets, route tables, etc. and NetGate.
Suppose I create a instance in under the VPC. So how can we access this?
You're using as a SSH, either through putty or save that PEM file, go to CD space downloads, copy the endpoint from the instance properties and paste that in command prompt, and that way that is accessed. So putty is basically a better option because it provides the changing of fonts, changing of background color, and a lot more features. Like if you want to do the port forwarding, instead of 22, we want to port forward it to another port for security purpose. So those kind of things are provided by putty.
Have you used the Bayesian host?
Bayesian host is basically to the task of Bayesian host. It acts as a bridge between backend and the internet for security purpose. So it will be used, like I have told you, the transaction based website deployments, in which data it's a 3-tier architecture. So first tier is Bashan, second will be the web server front end, and the databases will be in the third. So, and when Bashan host is provisioned, that is known as the jump host.
Okay. And what is the difference between scalability and elasticity?
Scalability means that we can move up and down the resources based on our requirement, and elasticity is that a single instance can be so suppose we can change the capacity of that particular resource according to our requirement.
Uh, Ritik, what was Ritik?
Yes.
Yeah. Ritik, suppose which kind of what is the horizontal auto scaling and what is the vertical auto? Which would be better option?
So if we want to the application is increasing like in a distributed manner. So suppose in the night time the number of users or the number of hits are going up and down in a day-night fashion. So for that we will use horizontal scaling, and if the particular web application requires more resources, for that we will use vertical scaling. So if the application size is and complexity is increasing, so for that we will use vertical scaling. And if the user and the number of its kind of scenario, in that we will use horizontal scaling. So basically if the requirement is distributed, so horizontal scaling is better option. And if a single application is being getting more complex and updated, so for that we will use vertical scaling, because it will require more compute or memory kind of things.
Okay, and what is the difference between on-demand instance and spot instance?
On-demand instances are the instances which can be provisioned whenever we want, we want to demand on the spot. And on spot instances are basically the auction-based instances which are not being used by the particular user. So those EC2 instances are given to us for the temporary purpose, so as to save our cost. So if we want to store any temporary data or do any experiment, so for the temporary purpose, for that we will use spot instances. So to create spot instances, we have to go to the request spot instances and configure them.
Okay. And have you used the snowballs?
Snowballs I have not used, but it is used for to move the TVs, or if you want to move the data which is very large in TVs. For that, Snowball is used. Because in our company, TBs of data on a single go has not happened till now. So Snowball will be used, which like the companies like Netflix and all those type of companies who are using a lot of video based content or the databases like IRCTC. Those companies have to face the TBs and TBs of data on the daily basis.
Okay. And what is the DOS attack? DDoS attack.
DDoS attack is the denial of service attack.
So how can you minimize this or you can say what services are in AWS to minimize this?
I think the security services like virtual firewall or these kind of things. Denial of service attack services I have not used.
Okay.
So, but this will go into security part. Create more stringent security groups, ACL, and if required, create a virtual firewall. And basically the focus will be on the security side in this kind of scenario.
Okay. So how do you set up a system to monitor the website's metrics in real time?
Please pardon.
How do you set up a system to monitor the website metrics in real time in AWS?
So for that we will create an EC2 instance and install. There are various monitoring tools like Nagios, etc. So we will provision, create a URL and monitor, and we will assign metrics to that, and if the metrics are being breached, we will configure email service. In that way we will do it. Apart from that, there are various tools such as Prometheus and Grafana, etc.
Have you used the CloudWatch?
So if we talk about the CloudWatch, we get the metrics based upon the various kind of metrics like hard disk, network, CPU usage. So default CloudWatch is already attached to the EC2 instance, which gives the basic monitoring for every 5 minutes. So if we want to further increase our monitoring more frequently, for that we can pay to the AWS and do it 1 minute frequency, and apart from that configure various metrics like CPU, etc. So based upon that it will show us the resource, show us the status.
Okay. And what is the concept of AMI?
AMI is the Amazon image, the images which are provisioned by the AWS. So whenever we are creating an EC2 instance, so the options which we are selecting for creating our EC2 instance, be it Windows, be it Mac, or be it EC2 Linux, so those are AMIs, Amazon images. Full form of AMIs is Amazon images.
And what is the concept of RTO and RPO?
Recovery timeout and recovery point of time. So it is used for data disaster recovery. So the RTO is the time which the companies can tolerate the downtime, and RPO is the amount of resources which can be down and the company can tolerate those kind of the losses of those resources. So this is in disaster recovery kind of scenario.
Okay. Elements of the cloud formation template. What are the elements of the cloud formation templates?
Cloud formation we don't use, we use Terraform. Hello?
Yeah.
So cloud formation we don't use. Sorry. So we can use Terraform for infrastructure as cloud. Infrastructure as a code.
Yeah. Okay, not an issue. And how can you automate the EC2 backup using EBS?
Using Lifecycle Manager.
Lifecycle Manager.
There are two tools I remember. One is Lifecycle Manager and one is another. So it is used to backup EC2, EBS, RDS, and DynamoDB. So there are 5 kind of services which we can take backup automatically on the daily basis. So one of them is Lifecycle Manager and one is AWS Backup Service. So there was a project in our company and the client has asked us to create these kind of resources. As I told you that my task is to create resources for this kind of scenarios. So we had used these 2 services from AWS.
Okay. Okay, Hrithik, I have done from my side. I am going to share my feedback to HR. She will be get back to you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.